Okay, let's get on with part two of our three-part critique. We'll look at the second set of 5 images that came in. So let's leap right into it. Well, I'm not quite sure what to say with this one. It looks like a giant lump of rock. That's a little fuzzy, I guess, due to the haze that's in the air out there. Certainly a big bluff-like thing. But when you see it, what is it that actually catches your attention to it? Is it that it looks like a giant meadow muffin out in the wild, or is there a sense of uplift? People call this, anecdotally, they call it El Capitan. Well, the real El Capitan in Yosemite is this incredible rock face that you look at and you get this sense of uplift and awe-inspired thing. Is that what this hunk inspires? Or is it what it's supposed to inspire? If so, then we've got several things that are working against us here. And one is this horizontal composition. You've shown the whole massif of the rock. Okay, cool. But what is there that lets us know its real scale? Well, if we can look very, very close down here, if we zoom way, way, way in, we can see dwellings or cars or that kind of thing. So it's clear that this is a big hunk of rock. But by itself, that's not much. Over here is another dwelling down at the base of it. So, I don't know. It just kind of sits there. The tones in the picture, even though the mountain is lit with this golden evening light, which is very pretty, the overall tones really aren't that far separated in the picture. So there's not enough of a separation to really draw us to that. One way to get a feel for that, just to sense it, is to go into image adjustments, come down here to desaturate, and when you see this as black and white, if your color picture doesn't hold up when it goes to black and white because the tonalities aren't exciting, or for whatever reason it doesn't hold up, then you can almost always guarantee it's not going to hold up in color. So, because color should be an additive to it. Color should be there because it's an extra part that helps and enhances the image. It should not be there to try to save the image. So let's go back to our color version. See, is there anything we could do to help it? Well, maybe if in fact we're going to settle on this uplift thing, then maybe the solution here is simply crop it. Produce something that forces us into that massive uplift. And now with this little tiny structure down here, we're starting to get a real sense of this. And maybe we could make that golden light stand out a little better. Let's try something here. I'm going to make a duplicate layer. On that layer, I really want to push those cyans and blues. So in order to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is hypersaturate them. So I've got cyan, saturate, and I've got blues, saturate. Now, that's done stuff in areas I don't want it to do, but I don't care. You'll see in a minute. So we'll say okay. Now, I'm going to create this as a luminosity layer. Might as well turn off my crop tool while I'm at it. Luminosity is an interesting layer style blend mode. What it does is pick up the contrast or the tones from the top layer and imposes those tones down onto the bottom layer. It's not about changing color, it's about changing the level of exposure, if you will, in those different areas. So I'm going to go in here to Image, Adjustments, Black and White. And now I'm going to take the skies down a bit. And maybe I'll bring those yellows up just a touch to brighten them up. It's too much. They start to blow out. Okay. Now I'll make this into a layer mask. And with my black brush, let's see if I can bring a little of this back down. Smaller brush here to blend this in somewhat. That's a little bit softer. Okay. Beyond that, well, what I do not want to do, because I don't want it affected at all, is that I don't want this happening in here. I want this to go away. So I'm going to pump up some of the value here. Blend that little cloudlet in some more. And maybe we can get a little enhancement in that shot. At least now we have a sense of scale because of the building that's down in here. So I think that helps us somewhat. If I were going to do anything else, it would be to slightly vignette this. So I'm going to take this, flatten it, do another layer, make it a multiply layer. Ooh, look at that sky now. And let's make a reverse mask. Go for a white brush. And see what we can do. And now with the white brush, let's see what we can do with this. To get a little more of that sky in there. Okay, I think that's just about all we can do with this. It would have been nice if it was a little bit sharper. And I don't know if that's a file, if it's camera movement, I don't know what's causing it. But it really, all of this incredible rock detail and the details down in the valley really ought to stand out a little better. But at least now we start getting a sense for that bluff, the big El Capitan bluff, rather than something that looks just like I said, a giant cow pile in the middle of the range there. Okay, let's go on. Well, this is an interesting shot. I love the light on the waters, I'm assuming, given where the water is on the trees, that this is flood stage on something. So I think it's pretty interesting. I would want to deal a little with that incredibly bright light right smack in the middle of it where the sun has blown out the clouds. And that's going to be very easy to deal with. Let me zoom in on that. Okay, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a natural light color that's in the sky. I did not want it to do that. And we'll come up to the eyedropper tool. We'll pick this color. We'll put that into our brush, and we're going to tell the brush to darken. Why? Because when that brush style, that brush blend mode is set to darken, it will only paint on the brush color or darker, or lighter. It will not paint on anything darker. So if I put it down here and click on it, which I just did, nothing happens. But if I spill it into there, you can see that starts to fill that in. So we can start having a little fun with this. We can bring this down. And now what I would probably do, if I really wanted that sun ball there in the middle of the shot, I would come down here and pick up a white brush. I would make it have a soft edge, but not much of a soft edge. I would decide how big my sun really is. The sky. And I would give us some white right in this area. Let's make this. There we go. Now we've got a sense of the sun back behind those clouds, playing down onto our river. So this works pretty well. I might darken the edges just a touch, maybe with a little bit of the burning tool. Here I'm not terribly worried about this color because it's kind of an unnatural color anyway. There is something in here you missed, by the way, that you should have caught. And let me show it to you. Right here. That's sensor dirt in the that's showing up in this smooth area of the sky. So I'm going to pick up our spot healing brush. Click on that. And now it's gone. You really got to look over at these smooth areas in your shot, because there is the place that any of that dirt that might get on your sensor is going to show up the most. It doesn't show up so much in other parts of it. The problem is it's there. You just can't see it. So for now, we're not going to worry about it. But if you're seeing that, then there's dirt elsewhere. You really need to be cleaning the sensor of your camera to make sure. Okay, let's go on. Well, I did say shoot around the area where you live, and I also said shoot for the effective light. And I have to say, yeah, this shot has done that. the satellite dish makes almost a nice metaphor for the online world we're having to live in at the moment. The little flare in the sky is fine. I think the shot really starts to say what you probably wanted it to. There's only a couple of things that I think would enhance it. Number one is I would get rid of a little of the sky, and it's too bad that you didn't shoot from a slightly different angle so that this wire didn't line up perfectly with the pitch on this roof. But those are being nitpicky. I'm not sure whether the crop issue is all that valid. If I pull just a little of it. Yeah, maybe I don't have so much of that top pulling me off of it. You could decide for yourself if using the trick we used in the last one to deal with the sun, if you wanted to take this down a little bit and reestablish what the sun was. But it's a clever concept. I like where it's starting to go. I think it would be interesting to use this as a starting point and go out and see what else you could make it do. Okay, it's a good job. Well, here we have a nice golden hour shot of the overpass. That's the lighting. Lighting is really beautiful. It's rich, golden. Everything is fine. The nice poofy clouds up in the sky. The only issue is you have two directly competing compositional elements that are killing the flow of this shot. One of them, of course, is this strong horizontal waterline bridge area. And it's got some fascinating detail in it. It's an interesting thing. But right next to it, you have this incredibly powerful uplift on this pole that's fed into by the stretch of grass that almost wants to come right up this pole. So we really need to decide what in here is your shot. And I'm assuming, if it were mine, I probably would not be drawn all that much to a light pole. So I'm going to assume it's the bridge. In which case, my first question is, why not step out this way a little further and get some more of that bridge? But since we didn't, let's see if we can help it a little. Now, what's more interesting to look at? The water? Nah. Or the sky? So if I'm going to crop any of this out, it's going to be the water. And I'm going to keep this rule of thirds going there. I'm going to bring this in so that I've lost the pole and its base. There's really nothing happening over here, so I might lose a little bit of that. And now I could use that luminosity layer trick we did before to see if I can enhance this sky a little bit. We'll make a duplicate layer. Make it a luminosity mask. Go to image, adjustments, black and white. Oh yeah, there's our sky. I knew it was in there. Now, if you're going to do this, do it on the high-res original. When you do this, as I just did on your low-res JPEG, you're going to get some serious artifacting around the edges and in those smooth tones. But if you do it on the high-res piece, it's a lot smoother. It'll look a lot smoother. It'll look better. But this is going to let you pretend like you had a polarizing filter on your camera. So let's get rid of that. Come on. And now I've got something that's a least a little more exciting, and you sort of know what the real subject of this is. We probably could lose a little of that sky, but I think it's a nice afternoon shot of the overpass. So let's see what else we have. Aha. Well, I don't know what to say. Congratulations on one thing. I don't often get left speechless at a shot. There are some technical issues. We've got some detail in here that's blown out that we could try to bring back. But the real question is why? Because the real question of the shot is, what is the shot about? This has so much conflicting elements in which are going in multiple directions, are fighting directional lines. And nothing in it is really standing out as the place around which everything else revolves. An angle change might have made that going across the little walkway. Or it might have made it going down beyond the caution tape. There are some possibilities here. But at the moment, it's simply too busy. And it's busy with things that don't really relate photographically. When you look at this for real, if you're out there, you can be in awe of the complexity of all of these lines, the directional lines, the colors, all of that kind of stuff can be fascinating to look at and talk about. But a photograph that's going to be a standalone photograph has got to be simpler. It's got to be actually pretty simplistic. A focal point, a major point in the image that everything is about and around which everything else revolves. Everything else supports it. If there's anything that conflicts with it, it ought to be gotten rid of. Well, if we tried to pick anything in here from this little round piece on the pillar, what conflicts with it? Everything else. If we tried to look in this opening, what conflicts with it? Everything else. So, this is really an interesting thing. Yes, you got some backlight. That's very cool. But in order to make a real photograph of this, you need to go back and decide where in all of this jumble of stuff is the real photograph. Okay, so that's it for part 2. We'll get on this to edit it, upload it, and then we'll get part 3 critiqued and uploaded probably tomorrow, but I'm not sure. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later.